Political literacy is vital for all people to play an informed, active role in our democracy. Political literacy involves knowledge, skills, and values. That's knowledge of how key political institutions and actors operate, the skills to debate, argue, and come to a considered view on complex issues, and values related to social justice, equality, and critical participation in democratic public life. That's why myself and colleagues around the country have contributed to the formation of an all-party parliamentary group on political literacy, a cross-partisan body of parliamentary and civil society actors who are calling for a guaranteed minimum entitlement to political education in every UK school. These calls for universal and comprehensive political education build on a compelling evidence base. Academic research around the world highlights that young people should be furnished with the appropriate democratic knowledge, skills, and experience prior to enfranchisement to improve the chances that they will become lifelong voters who also participate on a sustained, consistent basis in democratic life more widely. And crucially, there's growing evidence that political education can also mitigate known inequalities in political participation that we tend to see by gender, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status.
I don't think anyone would argue that we should educate young and old alike to understand how our democracy works, what happens in terms of not just Parliament, but active citizenship and how people can get involved, where power lies and how they can counterweight it, how our judicial system interplays with our political system and how our constitution works. The trouble is that historically people thought that if you were going to teach what would be called political literacy, you were going to end up teaching party politics. We still have a major challenge to get across to those working in schools that this isn't an imposition, this isn't something where there isn't room in the curriculum and time on the timetable to do it. This is a fundamental part of growing young adults into citizens of the future.
Politically literate society means a healthy democracy. Democracy is not to be taken for granted. We must all work together to protect and amplify, and that requires making sure that everyone is politically literate. Now is the perfect time to address the under-provision of political literacy in schools head-on.
Yet currently, a postcode lottery exists across the UK, meaning that young people do not receive that minimum entitlement. In England, citizenship education is on the national curriculum, but ongoing research suggests that it's only taught as a weekly discrete subject in roughly a fifth of secondary schools. The Department for Education's 2019 school workforce census also suggests that just 1 in 7 schools have a single trained citizenship teacher, and that where the subject is taught, it accounts for just 1.5% of learning hours. In Scotland, only 13% of students are currently receiving political education through qualifications in modern studies, and in Wales and Northern Ireland, citizenship education is again diluted as a feature or a theme within the broader curriculum. And the lack of a clear grounding in politics during primary and secondary education also means that the uptake of qualifications in politics at ages 16 and 18 lags well behind other mainstream subjects.
This group, this project, is vital for the lifeblood of our democracy and well-being of society. And we have to redouble our efforts to get to primary schools, to secondary schools, to colleges, to universities, to community centres, to give them the tools in which they can hold us to account.
And I think it's really important that we listen to young people. We see the world through their eyes. I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this APPG. I think we've got a lot of work to do, but I'm sure we will achieve great things together.
The landscape's changed rapidly over the last few decades. We've seen successive drops in political engagement. We know that youth satisfaction in democracy is at an all-time low.
If we are to uphold our responsibilities as citizens of any country, we should be politically literate. Many argue that misinformation is one of the biggest impediments to our democracy, but I want to go one step further and argue that ignorance is more dangerous. Carving out a space for political literacy in the secondary school curriculum will teach students to be critical, to be socially conscious, and to not accept things at face value.
The barriers and blockages to universal political education include concerns about what such programmes of study should cover, to practical concerns about how they should be taught within already crowded curricula and without a sufficiently sized workforce of trained politics or citizenship teachers. Academic research also indicates that the opportunities to learn about politics are already and currently disproportionately higher in schools serving affluent communities. And there remains a long way to go before citizenship education and politics courses in schools adequately reflect the voices and lived experience of all students. Questions about political education are undoubtedly messy and complex, but the effort to find suitable answers is worth expending. That's why the APPG on political literacy is proposing a number of important changes to educational governance in the UK. Firstly, we'd like to see every child provided with a minimum entitlement of political literacy in school by, in the first instance, better resourcing and monitoring of existing requirements to teach citizenship education in England and through alternative routes in the other constituent nations of the UK. We'd also like to see considerable increases to financial investment in initial teacher training programs for politics and citizenship education, as well as better continuing professional development opportunities for non-specialist teachers, who still undoubtedly carry a responsibility to teach young people about politics and active citizenship, but also crucially a range of sensitive and/or controversial issues. And lastly, we'd like to see the importance of political literacy strengthened in schools by school leaders, as well as others in the educational system who have the power to change the status of existing subjects, adapt existing curricula, and instigate sector-wide conversations on the content and delivery of political education.